What's up everybody, Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to do a review of the Marvel Legends Rhino Wave Kraven. And this is one of the better figures in this wave, and that is saying quite a bit because there's a bunch of really good figures in this wave. But let's go ahead and take a closer look and see just how good this thing is. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the articulation on this figure, and he actually has some really good articulation. I'm really happy with how this turned out. But his head is on a ball peg, and he has a hinge also in the neck, and even with this big vest, he's still able to look up really well. So if I can get that up, let's move this necklace out of the way a little bit, and he can look up that far, which is really good, and he can look all the way down and get his chin into his chest, which is awesome. And then he has no issues with the side to side action, and then he actually has a really good amount of tilt. They sculpted that really well so that you could get that tilt. In his shoulders, he's got a ball hinge, and he's not able to get his arm out quite as far as I'd like, but it's pretty close to all the way straight out. So that's not too bad. I don't believe that vest is actually even causing the issue. It's more the sculpt. But he does have full rotation of that arm, which is great. He's got an upper bicep swivel, which works with no issues. And he does have double jointed elbows, if I can get that spit out there. And then he has a peg joint and a hinge in his wrists, and those work fairly well. Moving into the excuse me, into the torso, he has a good ab crunch hinge, which allows him to crunch forward about this much, and then he is able to do a back arch or move back this far, which is really good. And then he does have a waist swivel, which there's no issues there. Moving into the hips, he's got T-jointed ball joints in the hips, and he's actually able to do the splits pretty far. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with this, especially compared to the Pizza Spidey, which doesn't do nearly as good. He's able to kick forward about this much, just about over 90 degrees, which is pretty good. Not much for backwards kick, but that's okay. I can live with that. And then he has an upper thigh cut, which works well. There is double jointed knees, which work really well. And then he does have an upper shin boot cut, which works well and is sculpted in really nicely. And then he's got a hinge in his ankles. He's able to move his foot back and not much forward, but that's okay. And then he does have an ankle rocker, which works really well. So overall, I'm really happy with the articulation. His hips are a little bit loose, and so because of the weight of the upper body, I have had some issues with him keeping his pose, but that may just be my figure. I have not ever seen anybody else really complain about that, but that's something to be concerned with, or at least be aware of. But overall, I'm really happy with the articulation. Alrighty, Hasbro did a really good job on both the sculpt and the paint of this figure, but the sculpt is definitely the winner here on this figure. But starting off with the head, I really like this head sculpt. I think they did a great job with the hair, and I think they painted it well, although there's not much for paint detail. The sculpted facial hair is also much appreciated rather than it just being painted on. It is sculpted, so there is a little bit of texture there. And the eye paint, they actually did a decent enough job. Moving into the torso, the body sculpt is actually, from what I understand, a newer sculpt for this wave. Obviously, this is a little bit older now, but I think they did a great job. The vest is amazing. Everybody loves the vest. I do think there could have been a little bit more paint shading, maybe a little bit of a darker shade, but the rest of the paint is really good. The eyes and the face of that lion, and then the back mane, they did a really good job. I do like the armbands. I kind of wish that those would have been sculpted on, but with all the other sculpt work that they did, I can kind of get past that. And then the forearm wraps, those are sculpted on, and they look great, and they're painted fairly cleanly as well, so I'm really, really happy with that. And the hands fit his staff really well. Moving into the belt, I think the belt is awesome. It's sculpted great. I do wish that the flaps were a little bit softer of plastic, but it's sculpted really nicely, and it's all painted fairly well. There isn't much for shading in any of the pouches, and I think by now you know that I love shading in the pouches. Moving into the knees, these knees are amazing. Out of everything, this is probably my favorite part of the figure. I don't care for the skulls being connected to the top of the shin because when you bend those knees, it looks kind of funny. But the rest of the lower legs, the feet, the shoes are sculpted very well. There's not much for paint on those feet, but overall, I think that Hasbro did an amazing job, both in the sculpt and in the paint job that they did on this figure. My little gripes here and there really aren't that, they're really not worth mentioning, but I had to anyway, because I'm really happy with this figure. Kraven comes with one accessory, which is this spear, which is really, really nicely sculpted. I think they did uh, for a spear, especially considering what we usually get from Hasbro, this spear is really, really nice. It's sculpted super cool. I do kind of wish that the arrowhead could have, or the spearhead could have been a little bit sharper looking, uh, but I think they did a great job with the sculpt. You can see the wood grain sculpted into it. The paint is great on the feathers. The wrap could have been painted a little bit different color. Uh, but the spearhead is painted in a silver, which looks really nice. The handle probably needed a black wash just to give it a little bit of detail look. But that is something that if you're comfortable customizing your own figures could easily be done for just a few pennies if you've got some black paint. I haven't done it on mine. I typically try not to do that to most of my figures, but maybe I'll get into it at some point. But I'm really, really happy with the accessory that we got with this figure, and it fits in his hands perfectly. All right, so I guess we got to talk about, is this figure worth buying? Yes, it is. This is an awesome figure. You have to get this figure. If you don't, there's obviously something wrong with you. Uh, Maybe you're just a terrible person. I don't know, but you need to get this. It is such a good figure. I'm so glad that I grabbed him. I think I even got him discounted. I don't remember how much I paid, but you definitely need to go out and grab this figure. I recommend it. Alrighty, folks, I hope this was helpful. Make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for more. I will see you later.
Tetris Brain.